Hello, this is TipTop Gaming here today with another Commander 2019 spoilers video. Today we're going to be talking about the whole Flashback deck, but I'm going to kind of speed up this first little part because yesterday's video was pretty long. So we're going to go over all of the Flashback spoilers and then the deck list. Why don't we jump into it? First off, we have Prismatic Strands. This is a 3-cost instant that says prevent all damage that sources of the color of your choice would deal this turn. This is a reprint, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not, I don't remember. And then it has Flashback, tap an untapped white creature you control. Again, this whole deck is built on Flashback, and the ability to be able to do this without paying a mana cost is pretty powerful. Next, we have Ghostly Prison. This is a reprint. And it says creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature he or she's attacking you with. That is pretty good. If you ever wonder why this looks very different, and it has a different set symbol, that's because this is a reprint and the spoiled version of it from this set is in a different language, so I just take the old version. Although they say the same text. Wall of Stolen Identity. You may have Wall of Stolen Identity enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's a wall in addition to its other types and has Defender. When you do, tap the copied creature and it doesn't untap during its control or its untap step for as long as you control Wall of Stolen Identity. Well, at first this might seem kind of lame. Oh, yeah, I can copy a 7/5, but it's a Defender and the thing gets tapped. But what you don't really see is that, or you might see, but it doesn't have to be your creature, meaning you can steal basically a creature from your opponents that has a cool ability or just is really big, and then it perma-taps that creature as long as that's on the battlefield. So it's essentially stealing the creature as long as that creature doesn't have like a triggered ability. Then we have River Kelpie. It's a 3/3 for 5, and whenever it or another permanent enters the battlefield from a graveyard, not casting spells, just permanents, draw a card. And whenever a player casts a spell from a graveyard, draw a card. And then it has Persist, which means if it dies and it had no -1/-1 counters on it, it returns to the battlefield instantly with a -1/-1 counter on it. So then you draw a card. Although it does have the ability, obviously, whenever you cast a spell from a graveyard, draw a card. So it works really well in this deck for that ability, not so much the top one. Then you may have Clever Impersonator, 4-cost 0/0. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any non-land permanent. That is crazy. That could be a Planeswalker. You don't have to control it. It could be a Planeswalker, a enchantment, artifact, anything, and this thing will become it. That's pretty cool. Then we have Dockside Extortionist. It's a 2-cost 1/2, and when it enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponent controls. That's really random, and I don't know if that fits well in this deck. We have Ignite the Future, 4-cost, exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may play those cards, and if the spell was cast from your graveyard, you may play those cards without paying their mana cost. And it does say play, so you can play lands with this. However, you still can only play 1 land per turn. I think it's okay. 8. I feel like for 8, that's pretty balanced. The only thing is, if you can give it Flashback in another way, like give all cards in your graveyard Flashback equal to their, mana cost, or if you can cast it from your graveyard in a different way, you still get that effect, and it doesn't have to cost you 8. So that is one thing I might see as a problem, but otherwise it's fine. Backdraft Hellkite. It's a 4/4 with flying for 5, and whenever it attacks, each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains Flashback until end of turn. The Flashback cost is equal to its mana cost, so while it may not be a big deal, these 2 cards synergize really well because it gains Flashback for 4 instead of 8, and then you can cast Ignite the Future. So that's an interesting card. Next, we have our artifacts and multicolored cards. We have a 1/5 3-cost legendary creature wall, and it says it's flying and defender, and as long as when it enters the battlefield, choose left or right, and each opponent may only attack the nearest opponent in the chosen direction and planeswalkers controlled by that opponent. So basically, you have to attack the person sitting either left or the right of you. And so that means basically you're attacking someone who can't attack you, and I think like it could create interesting gameplay, especially when you're all about instants and sorceries and casting them a bunch. If you can reduce the amount of people who can pretty much attack you, that's pretty powerful. Then we have Empowered Auto Generator. It's a 4-cost artifact, and it enters battlefield tapped, which probably means it's going to be powerful. Put a charge counter on Empowered Auto Generator. Add X mana of any 1 color, so not colorless, where X is the number of charge counters on Empowered Auto Generator. I think this card is a little bit late game, especially it coming in tapped. I think that's a little unnecessary, although I'm sure you can bolster the counters with other things, but I feel like if you made it 3 and enter tapped or 4 and not enter tapped, I feel like that would have been better. Overall, it's just Next, if you notice, yesterday's had a Vraska as their Planeswalker, so it looks like all of them are going to have Planeswalkers, and then we get, plus he's a 4-cost 4 loyalty Planeswalker, and you can tap another permanent, then untap target permanent. You can make him deal 2 damage to any target, and then you can flip 5 coins and take an extra turn after each one that comes up heads. One thing I'm not a big fan about this Planeswalker, and I know it's a reprint, so I'm not going to go too far into this, his -7 could literally do nothing. You could get unlucky, and theoretically you should take 2 to 3 turns, but there's a chance you get 0, there's a chance you get 5, and I don't know if I really like that. I can't just be like, oh yes, next turn I get the ultimate and this will happen. No, it's completely luck-based. Then we have just some not alternate art. These are the basic land art. I think they're okay, they're fine. And that's actually it for the actual spoilers. Wow. And so we are going to go over we're going to be going over the decks. So this one's called the Mystic Intellect. And yeah, we're going to be able to go over these cards a little bit more because can I not do that? Oh. We're going to be able to go over those cards a little bit more because they, what's the word? Because I spent less time on the last part. So Raul Zarek, we already talked about him. Pristine Angel, it's flying, and as long as it's untapped, it has protection from artifacts and all colors. That's pretty crazy. One thing to note, when you attack with it, it loses that protection, so it's not unblockable. And then whenever you cast a spell, you may untap it. But it is unblockable if you cast the spell, it untaps and then goes. That fits well with the deck because you're casting lots of spells. We have Sun Titan. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with CMC cost 3 or less from your graveyard. Mana cost less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Sorry, yes. That was right. I'm actually going to go and only talk about the ones, or I guess this one, I actually have this one. I'm really only going to talk about the cards that have flashback so we can kind of see what we're dealing with. We have Divine Reckoning. Each player chooses a creature he or she controls, then destroy the rest, and you can flashback that for 7. Now, while this is kind of, if I'm not mistaken, Savine, the main commander for this deck, actually it duplicates it, but this is kind of pointless because you're just going to choose the same creature twice. So the commander is kind of useless in this situation, but it is just a nice card. Then this one is destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater, and then actually Aftermath does trigger the commander's ability, which duplicates spells cast from the graveyard, and it says return all creatures with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So it doesn't go to the battlefield, which is generally what happens with stuff like that. So it could bring back Talaron Sky Summoner, Gutter Snipe, potentially Crackling Drake, and Burnished Heart. That's it. So I don't think that really fits well in this deck, especially with the low amount of creatures. And if they are tokens, they don't go to the graveyard. So then we have put 5 1/1 white human creature tokens on the battlefield. If it was cast from your graveyard, put 10 of those. This is crazy, okay? I know it costs 9, but again, if you can give this thing flashback for 5, it's much better. If you have, for instance, your commander out, you then create 21 1s for 5. That's pretty crazy. Next, we have Storm Herd. 10 mana, put X 1/1 flying creature tokens on the battlefield where X is your life total. That's pretty cool. One thing I've noticed is that if you want any of these to be good, you need a lot of mana. And I don't really see, so far I haven't seen much ramp. We have this, which is ramp, but it's okay. This does X damage to target creature or player. Pretty good, and it has flashback for triple red X. Kind of expensive, but again, you could also duplicate that with other abilities in the deck. We have Deep Analysis, which is a 4-cost, draw 2 cards, and you can flashback it for 2 and paying 3 life. Again, you could duplicate that, and since it's a cost, you don't have to pay the cost again. Mystic Retrieval, which is a 4-cost return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. I mean, so far it doesn't look like you want to do that. You want to cast them from the graveyard, but then this also has Flashback for 3. Then we have Runic Repetition, return target exiled card with Flashback you own to your hand. This is powerful. So you cast, let's say, the thing that creates 10 1/1s. So you cast that, create 5 1/1s. Then you put it in your graveyard, you cast it the next turn, create 10 1/1s, but then you duplicate that to 20 1/1s. Then the next turn you cast Runic Repetition, return it back, then you get to create 5 more 1/1s and then 20 more 1/1s. That's crazy. I know that's a lot of pieces to put together, but this is Commander, so I believe in that being a thing. For instance, like with that one creature we were talking about, that makes it so Flashback is equal to their CMC. And then we have Faithless Looting, which is a powerful card. Draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. It's really good for looking for pieces to find a combo kind of like that, where you get to create 50 1/1s. Then we have, it also has Flashback. Rolling Temblor. Rolling Temblor deals 2 damage to each creature without flying, and then it has Flashback for 6. It's okay, I guess. I mean, it has Flashback, so I guess cool, but let's hope your opponent isn't playing like a flying-based deck, otherwise that card is dead. Next, okay, so we have 13 more, and then that's all we're gonna talk about, really. I'm gonna briefly go over the other ones. We have Increasing Vengeance. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. If it was cast from the graveyard, copy this spell twice. If this thing was cast from the graveyard, copy that spell twice. You know what? Let's add this to my creating 10 1/1s. You then get to create like 40 1/1s or whatever, and then you choose new targets for the copy, and you can flashback this for 5. Sure, if you have that much mana, you should probably win on your own, but you know, that's fine. This one's a little weird. Magma Quake deals X damage to each creature without flying, and each planeswalker doesn't have flashback. I guess it doesn't have to, but it's, and I guess in order for that one card that gives things flashback to be useful, it needs it, but that's interesting. And then we have Refuse, Cooperate. You can copy spells and deal damage equal to a spell's converted mana cost. Prismatic Strands, which we talked about, so that was a reprint. Purify the Grave. Exile target card from a graveyard and flashback it for 1. Destroy target artifact and enchantment. That's expensive. I would rather... I know you get to do it twice, but you need 6 to do it the second time. That's kind of sad. Chemistry's Insight has Jumpstart, which is another way to cast things from your graveyard. We have Factor Fiction, and this basically just lets your opponent divide things into 2 piles. This can be really powerful, and especially Commander, obviously, where you can have an opponent and you're like, we need to take out this person, and you can help, basically politics, be like, put all of them in one pile and I'll do this. I think it's a very powerful card. Fervent Denial, counter target spell for 5, and you can flashback it for 7. I think that's pretty garbage. So far, I'm not liking this deck as much as the Morph deck. The Morph deck seems to just have better cards. These cards kind of are like, or bad, generally. Target player draws a card. This is a good way of casting things from your graveyard multiple times. Remember, if you have your commander out, you can duplicate this. And it says, you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land, in addition to paying its other cost. And you don't have to get rid of this. This stays in your graveyard. You can just keep casting it from your graveyard as long as you keep having land, which could be nice. For instance, if you draw a land from this card, then you get to retrace that land to then play this card again if you have the mana. Then we have Think Twice, which says draw a card, flashback for 3. Again, duplicate that. That's pretty good. Then we have Desperate Ravings. Draw 2 cards and discard a card at random. That's never good, because basically, if you have a good card and you're like, I need this card to win, you can never cast the spell, and then you can flashback it for 3. How lovely. Then we have Farm and Market, which says destroy target attacking or blocking creature. Aftermath, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. Again, things with Aftermath are going to be useful, especially with your commander. Then we have just some basic, I guess, cards. We go to Jace's Sanctum, which lets you cast spells for 1 less, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, scry 1. Ghostly Prism, we talked about, whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard, draw a card, that's good. Burning Vengeance, whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard. So it's a lot of both instants and sorcery synergy and casting things from your graveyard synergy, which is really good, but I just don't know if this deck's going to do that well. especially compared to something like I think the Morph deck was much better in my opinion. I'm just gonna quickly go over all of these lands. There you go. And then here are the list of new cards. One thing I don't think that happened. I don't think those are actually all of the cards in that were spoiled. I didn't see another set of legendary creatures. I mean, I guess earlier they previewed Gerard, which I believe is in this deck. Yes. And then did they preview any other legendary creature? I don't think so, so there might be one in here. Let's see, is there anything else with a comma in here? Promekin Skyraptor. Did they preview that? Yes, they did. I guess that wall can also be your commander. So I guess we did talk about all of them. I guess this deck just seems okay. I prefer this deck with all the fun Morph, as well as I think Morph is just a more fun mechanic. I feel like it has better interaction. It has more I'm always able to do something, whereas this deck feels very basic. Like, oh, I get casting stuff from your graveyard is very powerful. I just don't know if it's going to be as fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye.